Sumner Accountability, your snout for accountability and transparency in Sumner County, Kansas.
Iowa. I chose to come back to college, and this is also where I met my husband. So, why Oxford? Have you ever driven down a highway lined with farmland, and as you pass the rows of crops, it becomes rhythmic as you watch years row pass by, and how the sun catches the top of the crop at the peak of summer, or when you're driving and come along that lone barn still standing strong. The peacefulness of the country living, or the magnificent night skies oh my gosh, are now littered with the red blinking lights. These are some of the reasons we chose Oxford. We found a beautiful piece of land with the best neighbors, where we have been planning for over 10 years and have recently started to build a house so that our kids can get to grow up and make memories. We are within 3/4 of a mile of this new proposed facility, and we can see it from our brand new front porch. This is not where we saw our dreams. This is not what we saw for our children and possible grandchildren. I'm sure this is not what the other residents saw either. I hope you can see why we are all fighting against this, and hope you stand with us and fight against it as well. And please vote no. Thank you.
Good afternoon, gentlemen. I'm Elizabeth Davis, and I live at 747 North Anson Road. Despite many changes, good and bad over the years, I do love Sumner County. I love the people, but most of all the land. My job has taken me down many back roads and across many different landscapes, including those with wind turbines recently installed east of Wellington by NextEra. My job at these sites is simple: help farmers fix the mess left behind by those who do not love or care for the land like we do. For the past year, farmers have fought to have their land repaired by these so-called green companies whose only objective is to farm subsidy dollars. This is an issue that will continue to evolve as more wind turbines come in. As hard as it has been to save our soil from washing away from under and around these turbines, I can't imagine what it will take to mitigate damage from a highly explosive pest site. We know that there are many dangers that are involved with this project, but we also know that there are many things that will follow if we do not stop it from coming here. You are all our neighbors. These people are all your neighbors. Please vote with your neighbors in mind. Thank you, sir.
I'm Martha Nash, Oxford, Kansas. And first off, I'd like to say to the question you asked about the closest house, and it's not a half a mile away, it's 600 feet. So it's in the same plot that's going to be it.
What's the service has been hot? It's in the application.
Well, when they measured it says 600 feet.
All I can tell you is that if you look at the application and where the site is located, it's about a half mile. The closest house is east.
From the far edge? From the far edge, not the one that's right there. Is that enough?
We'll take a quick look here and I'll make sure we get the exact answer.
Okay, I appreciate that.
She needs to restart the timer. She was interrupted. She wasn't interrupted, she wouldn't have identified.
I'd also like to add, after hearing what they said at the commissioners meeting where they didn't say it, but we were told that they were gonna reduce what they were, by half of what they said they were gonna give the county. Now, if they're willing to do that before you guys vote, doesn't that raise a red flag of, what they're willing to do? I guess I should read better. Not only is this a health risk, but it's a safety risk to our community. But that's not what bothers me the most. It's the production of farm ground. We need farm ground to feed the country, and that should be a priority. Without the farm ground, what are we going to do? We're going to start depending on other countries to supply our food. Is that what we want? And why would they want to put facilities on productive farm ground when they could go find a place other than this? Well, probably because we're unregulated. We had petitions out, and in less than a week, we had over 1,000 signatures. So I would hope that after listening to the people here and the petitions, you would vote no. And in the future, if there's something of this magnitude, such as a failure or a fire or some other problem with something as big as this that you're voting for, don't you think that we should put it on the ballot and vote for it, let the people decide?
My name is Monica Barton. I live at 102 South Merchant in Belle Plaine. I'm just outside of the city limits on the south side of town. For myself, it's terrifying to think that we could potentially have this kind of a situation arise in our county, because if there were to be a fire, and they're not saying that there can't be a fire, if there were to be a fire, our own fire chief, Sumner 9, has said that he doesn't have the means to be able to do anything with that fire. We all know how the wind blows in Kansas. A windy day, the wrong thing blow across, and boom, we've got a wildfire that we don't know how to stop, that we don't have the control to stop. We also know that rain can come at any time of year.
Amen.
And they've said that if you get those fires wet, it makes them worse. So therefore, if you have the potential to have a rainstorm at the same time that you have a fire that's burning out of control, how are we going to stop that from hurting our homes, from hurting our livelihood? And then the potential of runoff from, this last year we had torrential rains right over the top of Oxford. I was stuck in the middle of one of them trying to drive home. And so the potential for those rainfalls to run off and affect our aquifer and potentially contaminate our groundwater. If NextEra wants this, put this in their backyard. Put this where they live. Don't run the risk of every community in the area. I was told that there was a 25-mile evacuation radius. I don't know if that's true. I have not seen the actual documentation, but when I looked it up, a 25-mile radius from that location would include all of Oxford, all of Udall, all of Belle Plaine, Wellington, Winfield, Mulvane. A 25-mile radius would include all of those areas that would be under potential evacuation. Is that something we're willing to risk to our citizens? Is that something that we want? Not all money is good money.
Right.
And not all growth is good growth. We don't need this here. We don't need this in Sumner County. The potential of the aquifer becoming contaminated would affect every farmer in our county because they all depend on that well water. All of our citizens depend on that aquifer. I don't know anyone that gets water locally that doesn't come from that aquifer. We don't want to risk that.
Hi, my name is Paul Nash. I live at 1836 East 25th Avenue North, Oxford, Kansas. And I've met all of you guys before at some of your meetings. Now, the facility out in California, these guys that was the largest battery fire in the nation. It burned anywhere from 55 to 80% of that facility. Now, they're going to tell you it was an old facility. But they've only found 2% of the material that came out of that facility. And so this article, they said they put a 5-mile radius around that facility. It shut down major highways, and there were a lot of people affected by it. The material coming out of those batteries are heavy metals. They don't go away. They just work down into the system. They're still studying it. Now the government mentions, oh, it's all good, 2 days later, and that's what these guys are trying to tell you. But these guys are hired by NextAir, and they're going to tell you what they think you want to hear. They're finding it in the battery, in the wetlands. So we estimate 55,000 pounds of heavy metals were deposited across roughly a half a square mile. The Vista battery facility burned was 300 megawatts, which they're talking about in Oxford, 300 megawatts. And they lost anywhere 55 to 80% of that material. And they've only found 2%. And then also, the containment that they talk about. They're not very thick. They're less than 1/8 of an inch thick. Now they had some Tesla cars on 2 different ships, one in 23 and one in 25. Got so hot, they melted and buckled the ships and the ship sank. That was just Tesla cars. Okay. And I asked the question the other day that nobody's really talking about, is what happens during a severe storm or, God forbid, a tornado hit this facility. That facility's not going to be there. We've seen tornadoes. The Udall tornado went past where I live by about 75 yards. Okay? That was a long time ago, but they can happen, and they come through here. Now, Warwick, New York, we've heard about that. It's burned last week. You don't start that fire, rainwater infiltration into their waterproof containers that they tell you they have. Think about that. All of this stuff's coming out of China. All of it. I don't care if it's got a GE sticker on it, whoever sticks their name on the outside. It's all coming out of China. Their standards aren't our standards. We don't need this around our homes. The money, so be it. I don't know what they promised you guys, but from what I have been able to ascertain, it's not much. Thank you for your time.
Hello, my name is Krista Rankin. I live at 1850 East 25th North in Oxford. I moved here 17 years ago with my husband, who grew up in Oxford. Oxford is the only place that I felt like a true home. The population of Sumner County has mostly declined since the 1920s. I say mostly because a few census reports there was slight growth. Is it important to bring people into Sumner County? I think it is. Do you think that bringing this in will bring more people? I think it's safe to say that green energy
will only further decline Sumner County. Unfortunately, those wanting to leave, especially those around these turbines and next to batteries and solar, will not be able to sell their homes. They will have to abandon them. This has already happened due to the turbines. I read an article in a local newspaper stating that studies say property values will not go down due to the battery facilities. I would venture to say that this is because people won't be able to sell their homes, so there will be no record of a sale. I know that I certainly would not choose to purchase a home located within a certain mileage of turbines, batteries, or solar.
Right.
If you want to grow and better Sumner County, this is not the answer. How many jobs will this battery facility bring to Sumner County? I've heard one local job. I would much rather see manufacturing brought to Sumner County if you want to see growth. That would be a long-term solution to bettering our county for generations to come. Green energy, batteries, solar, that is only looking at the now and not to the future of this community for generations to come. I hope and pray that there is something of value here for my children and grandchildren to want to stay here, because I love it and I hope they do too. There's only so much farm ground out there and we cannot make more land. We need to protect what we have and not continue to destroy it. I ask that you vote no to Next Era and listen to the voices of those who voted you into office. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Sarah White. I live at 127 South Bell Creek Road in Oxford. I live about a mile away from where this is going in. We fear a fire. We fear a volunteer fire department that will not know how to handle this. We fear their gear that will not handle it and will have to be thrown away immediately after one of these fires. We fear a 30-mile evacuation, one of which my home is within a mile. So after this evacuation, we will come home to absolutely nothing. Our home, our livelihood for 25 years will be utterly destroyed. I fear the high water table. Right now, we have natural springs all around us. Our land is swampy and we haven't had a good rain in months. Our water table is so high and everyone around us has well water, rural water, and all these deposits, all these chemicals are going to go into this water. And are you ready for the cancers that are going to come out of this? Are you ready for the damage that it's going to do to everyone, all the families, anyone that eats crops from the land because of the cancers and chemicals that are leaching into this? I fear the storage containers that New York proved cannot even last 5 years. I see this as only benefiting 2 people. Someone with an RV park that stands to benefit from the imported workers. And honestly, if this is any other thing, should recuse themselves from this vote. And the landowner who is getting these batteries put on his land. This does not create jobs. This is not what we voted you in for. And maybe at your age, you're on your way out and you don't see the world and land as your problem anymore. But it's still my world, my land, and my future at stake. No one has stood up in support of this. And all I can say is that if you choose to go against our wishes, well, my question then is, what did you benefit? Did you get bought? Because nobody here wants this. Our window, and all I see is the base of one of those wind towers. It is so close that we don't even see the top of it out of our front window. And since it's not on our land, technically, we get absolutely nothing from it. This does nothing. All this new green scam that is going around does nothing for us in Sumner County. You want this put in? Put it in where the people actually vote for it. If it's so safe, put it in Wichita. Put it where the liberals are that voted for this. We did it.
15680 Stonington Drive. I'm here on behalf of landowners and farmers that couldn't be here today to share their perspective. Board, chairman, councilors, thank you for being here today. The project represents real, tangible benefits for our community. First, it brings good, paying jobs during construction and long-term operational work. These are jobs that put local people to work and keep dollars circulating right here in the county. The Webb Road project represents significant private investment and new local tax revenue that supports the schools, the roads, the emergency services, and the county budget. This matters in a rural county like this one where every dollar counts. It strengthens the local electric system. Battery storage helps deliver reliable, low-cost, locally produced electricity into homes and businesses across the region. It supports grid stability, helps manage peak demand, and makes our energy system more resilient. Most importantly, this project exists because the local landowners stepped up. These are your neighbors. They chose to use their private property responsibly to help meet growing energy needs and support the broader community. They followed the rules, worked with the county, and made a voluntary decision that reflects the values Sumner County was built on: property rights, stewardship of the land, and looking ahead to the next generation. Thank you for your time and consideration. Have a good day.
Are you part of the trust?
I thought you couldn't speak for somebody else. You had to speak
Okay,
to
folks.
which landowner.
That's enough.
Yes, it is.
That's enough.
It's a question that needs to be
Somebody
answered.
else wants to speak.
You said you couldn't represent other people. You had to represent yourself.
That gentleman didn't interrupt you.
No, but the question
I didn't
needs to
interrupt
be
him.
answered. When
That's
you guys,
enough.
no, I won't. I will not. I have too much at risk for this. When I'm sorry, I can't think of your name, in the corner.
Do you want to leave the meeting?
No, but I want my voice to be heard. And it's
Your voice has been heard, lady.
no. He said, he said whenever we started the meeting that you had to represent yourself, you could not represent others. And he started his speech with he was representing others. He wasn't representing himself. So that had no value.
The question that was posed to me at the beginning of the meeting by, I believe, this gentleman here is, did he give his minutes to someone else to add to their 3 minutes? That was the question.
But your response was you had to represent yourself. Somebody could, you said unless it was an attorney, then nobody could represent.
Right. The only person that individual can't add to other people's time to give them more time other than the 3 minutes that they had.
Is he an attorney? Is he an attorney? You're up, sir. My name's Greg Conrady. I'm from Colorado, Kansas. Are you Mr. Hill? Yes, sir. Was your dad Richard? Yes. I used to do work for Richard, your mother, out east of Perth. And they were really, really good people. Would you want this piece of crap put in their backyard if they were still alive? Would you put that piece of crap in their backyard? I'm not going to answer that. No. No, because you wouldn't. You wouldn't do that. They were really, really good people. Did you check it? What are you guys set up as? An escort? Is your company an escort? Nobody will answer it? You know what an escort does? An escort takes all the money out of the corporation and pays it out to people as salaries. And you know what that does? Is all the people that get this money, they're protected. There's a firewall between them and freaking Nexstar. If this crap goes south, they're going to walk away from it. You can't sue those people that actually own the company and get a damn dime. Who's going to clean up that crap? It's going to be the taxpayer. It is not going to be them. You ain't going to be able to afford to clean it up. And I'm going to tell our fire chief down in Caldwell, I don't know whether he'd ever get called to that thing, but I'm going to tell him to stay the hell away from it. They're all my friends on that fire department. You can't clean up that crap that's going to come out of this thing. The farmland, if there's a fire, all that stuff's gonna settle on that farmland. It's gonna be worthless. You're gonna lose all that tax base because it's gonna be wasteland. You won't get a damn thing off of it. You guys, I don't understand how in the hell you could wanna do something like this.
Right.
And if this goes through, there will be a recall. I don't care if the commission. This is the biggest crock of crap I've ever seen. I don't need the rest of my time. You guys are doing exactly what they did over in Harper County with that damn landfill. It was voted down by their board over their zoning board over there 7-0, and the 3 commissioners voted it through. When that damn thing starts leaking and running crap into the Shikaski River, Caldwell's screwed, because that's where our water comes from, Argonia, everybody else. What are you gonna do with this out here when this starts leaking? It ends up into the groundwater. Who in the hell's gonna pay for it? You can't fix it. Corbin had their water, they had to get on rural water from Caldwell, because their water out there was rigged.
Hold the microphone.
My name is Renee Moore. I am from Buda Springs, 1680 East 100th Street South. I think we all realize lithium-ion batteries are dangerous. Regular fires do 12 to 1400, and these fires are at 4900, and it's a chemical reaction. It's not a fire. That's why your National Fire Protection Agency don't have any guidelines, because it's not a normal fire. I think between e-bike fires, EV vehicle fires, skateboards, derby bikes and scooters that they to ride around, and they're lithium-ion batteries, in the summertime, hot fire, thereby the scooters are gone. There is a solution that I think is a happy medium, and the name of the company is Accowntabilimeter. They use all American source and no outside components. It's all made in America. I sent you guys an email this morning, maybe late last night, been a long holiday. And if you look in there, it's the website, and simply go to YouTube and you can put it in, EXOWATT. It's a new company. They make them in components, like 40-foot containers, and you can use as many or as little. The efficiency of it is good. Right now, it's sitting about 3 to 4 cents kilowatt, and they want to get it down to 1. So, price-wise, compliment-wise, plus they use sand batteries, they use Fresnel lenses, and it's a 3-in-1. It collects the energy, it stores the energy, and it transfers the energy all in one. It does it without lithium ion, and all the hazards go along with it. Even the wind turbine, the blades rotate, there's nothing you can do with the blades. It's creating more waste than what can, and I feel like the voters, okay, if you go clear back, first we have the lottery. Oh, that money's gonna help us go on the roads. Well, poof, it disappeared. Casino, oh, that's gonna help. Wind turbines, oh, they're gonna help. Nothing has helped. There are viable solutions, but it takes research, it takes time, and just look at the P3 box, please. I know that we'll need additional electricity. I'm aware of that. And also, I like it's all American, and dirt cars are not all American. That's concerning. Thank you.
Good afternoon. I'm Jay White. I live at 127 South Quail Creek in Oxford. If you guys don't know where that's at, that's about half a mile away from where this is getting ready to get put in. My understanding is this sounds like it's just an individual wanting to put this thing in, wanting to sell his land and put this thing in. Problem is, it's sitting right next to us, sitting right next to a lot of you guys also. Okay? I don't want this thing sitting in my backyard any more than you do, okay? But the thing is that he lives a mile and a half up there to the north of it, up over the hills. He's never gonna see it. Windmill tires, I've got windmill tires next to my place, not getting anything off them. We get all the negative, none of the positive, okay? Talk about jobs, okay? Windmill project went through. I got a big old sign up there on 160 highway says I got rock and dirt. Never was approached for any rock and dirt as far as I know. Now I don't know if that's me being having bad blood with them or not. But guys, like I say, you got something that is going to poison groundwater. You've got people who were not irrigating years ago that are irrigating now on the north side of 160 highway. That wasn't even thought of, when all this, getting put in. So, you're not gonna get the jobs. That's not gonna happen. You're gonna have one person that might supervise this thing, but you're not gonna get anybody, you're not gonna get 1,000 people in here working and paying good tax money, The value of my house, everybody wants to say, well, the value of the properties, they don't go down. Well, pardon my French, they sure as hell ain't gonna go up. Do you think they're gonna go up with the windmill tires? Do you think they're gonna go up with a big battery storage system? If you think that's what's gonna happen, you're crazy. So, like I say, I would just, just imagine this is just an individual wanting to do this. It'd be like me wanting to put a waste facility on my property.
Right.
You probably wouldn't like that. You'd probably raise hell with it the whole time. I'm pretty sure I'd get drugged through the sewer trying to get a waste facility put in on my place. No different than this, okay? And this is just an individual. Nobody's coming from next year to see if I want this done. None of that. It's not like the windmills. None of that is being done right now. All of this is just individual wanting to do this. This has nothing to, at least I haven't been contacted. Have any of you people been contacted by them to see if you want to lease your land for it or make it all right? No, this is just an individual wanting to do this. Now, I don't know if the land's been sold yet or not. My understanding is Bob Hendricks' land. Has Bob Hendricks been paid for this yet? I don't know. Okay, thank you.
Anyone there?
You look more dignified than some of you guys did when you were putting hay out with me a few years ago. Brian Kearney, Belle Plaine, Kansas, 771 North Seneca Road. I noticed before most of us stood up, they had the guys that were here to promote the project give us a little bit of details, and they spent a lot of time on some of the things that we're most concerned about. Fire, pollution, and noise. Why'd they spend so much time on that? Because that's what they work on the most. They just got done telling you that the plant that caught fire again on the 22nd of December in Warwick, New York, for the third time, since 2018 is old technology. They got stuff that's new and better. And they may have 3 fires in, 7 years? And now, of course, if you had 3 fires out here in 7 years, you wouldn't want any more electric batteries built here either, but we're not to that point yet. So, what is this pollution that's going to happen when there is a fire? They didn't address that too much, except to say that wasn't any worse than if your garage burned down, you stood in the smoke. How many guys have stood in your garage bar smoke? I don't think they know what's in my garage, or they wouldn't want to be standing in the smoke, I'm sure. And it's legal too. So, anyway, they didn't spend much time talking about the Moss Landing plant, though, out in California, that my understanding was built about the same time, about 7 years ago. About 300 megawatts, that's about what we've got here. I think it maybe got bigger. Biggest part of it burnt down. My understanding is that the authorities, when the smoke plume happened, warned 4 full counties that they needed to be aware that there was a smoke plume, plus there was a large amount of people evacuated from freeways and roads, and houses and whatever. They will tell us that the new batteries have got different technology and they don't have the same cathodes that burned up then. But it appears that nickel, manganese, and cobalt was evaporated in the fire and dealt with some of this. Some of it was found there within 1.2 square kilometers, but there's a lot of it that wasn't found. The estimate was 1,900 tons of cobalt, and that was available, and only about 50% of it's been accounted for, which means the rest of it's somewhere else wherever the smoke landed.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. I'm Emily Jensen. I live at 310 West Grant Street over in Mayfield. I agree with everything that's been said today, except with the exception of the paid weasel that is supposedly speaking for the farmers. In May 2021, my husband and I left our big city life to purchase our house in Mayfield with the hope of it being our forever home. We purchased our home from farmers who farmed in Sumner County before Mayfield was even a city. Currently, my husband serves on the Fire District 8 for Mayfield. All of our guys are volunteers, and while they are excellent at what they do not have the resources to fight fires such as these, and they are worried. They can't be here because they're at work, but I want you to know that I'm speaking for them because it's that important. I think you guys have already made up your mind if you're going to vote yes or no. But let me tell you, if you vote yes, I will do everything in my power to make sure you are not voted in office the next time the election comes.
Good afternoon. My name is Judy Borboa. I live at 610 North Kansas Street, Oxford, Kansas. And you 3 elected officials, remember your childhood dreams of your parents, your dreams and futures for their families, for your families. Ask yourself, living here in the seat of Sumner, Kansas, or county, would you live right next to the windmills and the battery storage facilities and raise your families and work for the farmers and work as farmers and livestock, with livestock? You know, sorry, I just wrote notes. You know, what proof, you know, of our groundwater and our air and the animals and their human quality, will still remain good if best comes in. You know, will best put in and pay and provide emergency equipment and crew on site and contract and guarantee that they will have a universal emergency response if there is not if when there's a fire or some sort of devastation. And if there is, you know, we have winds, you know, I looked it up. We had winds all the way up to 102 miles per hour in 2025 in the state of Kansas, and that was in Wichita. And I don't think no insurance will want to insure any of us.
Right.
You know, our insurance already is high as it is. You know, we moved here 3 years ago. This was our retirement place. We loved Oxford. We loved the church that we go to. We loved the people, the little town. And we were just hoping that it'll start building up again. If you guys are from here, if you guys remember what the town used to be, the love of the people, you know, our kids that go to school there, our football players, you know, we ask, what is in the water? You know, we have a good school, we have, you know, good teachers, you know, our farmers, their kids, they still say, yes, ma'am, no, ma'am. You know, if we can help, you can hardly find that anymore. And, you know, we need, you know, our farmers, you know, all this processed food, we still need our farmers to do what they need to do. And so you guys, like I said, you know, you're older, you've got what, 10, 20, 30 years left. You know, what are you gonna leave these generations? You know, I did have one more thing. Why don't you guys move to Pitcher, Oklahoma? It's already those there. You know, it's already contaminated. That's what we're gonna do. Contaminated water.
Anyone else?
My name is Jan Chambers. I live at 514 East 33rd Street here in Wellington. The last time I spoke to you guys, I talked about a pig farm analogy, and I won't belabor it. But for the sake of the audience, I'll tell it really quickly. I live in a small little conclave about 3 miles south of Wellington, and there was one of our neighbors that owned land out there that shared the pond with us, our family, and 18 others, and they wanted to start a pig farm. That would have been economic prosperity for them. But the neighbors were up in arms because even though pig farming is a wonderful enterprise, we all probably benefited from pig farming this morning at breakfast. It is a natural thing, but smells, it's noisy, and it causes property value to go down. The correlations between pig farming and this, I guess it's easy for everybody to see. Today I want to talk about something else, and I've thought a lot about the position that you guys find yourselves in. I thank you for your service. You have a big decision in front of you. I looked it up on the internet to see what a statesman is supposed to be. It says a statesman's motive is the common good, for future generations, national, or in our case, county unity. Those should be the motives. The focus would be long-term county interest, enduring principles, the future of our county. Your actions stand by core values. Make difficult decisions for the greater good, even at personal cost. As respected leaders of our community, elected, respected leaders of our community, you have a responsibility to vote in the interest of those in this room and in our county. I've heard it said that all of life is a moral decision, and it is. It is. So I'm asking you, do the right thing. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioners. Appreciate you guys allowing everyone to speak and making adequate time for everyone. Laura Lombardi. I live at 214 South Washington's the easiest address. Having moved back into this area a few years ago, I can tell you that there were a number of things that remained steady from my childhood, and one was that no one wants to be told what they can or can't do with their land. And yet no one wants to be at odds with their neighbors either. And unfortunately, this situation has kind of led to that in our county, and you guys have the very difficult job of navigating that situation. And having been in front of you a few times, I know that you will do your due diligence to weigh all the things that are said in this room, as well as, you know, what you've learned on your own. I will say, you know, someone commented earlier about Sumner County being the world's largest wheat producer, and that was 100 years ago. And now our farmers have diversified their crops because they can't live on what wheat does for them. They have diversified in a number of different ways so that they can protect themselves financially. And in fact, everybody might not know, but Sumner County actually leads the state in cotton production now, which no one would have expected 20 years ago. So things do change, and things in the technology world change even more rapidly. It's about choosing who you decide to work with and protecting the residents as you make your decisions. Most of the residents of this county don't actually know where the electrons come from when they flip on the light switch. And it certainly isn't something that's green or not green, it's just my lights turn on when I need them. But what people may not realize is just how much the price of the electricity fluctuates based on demand. The battery systems and some of the renewables that are being installed here help take off that top portion and allow that grid to be more stable. Hopefully, and I think we will see it as things happen, it will positively impact on people's electric bills down the road. I know it's a really emotional, and unfortunately, I'm super disappointed in the residents that are in this room because typically they're more courteous. And I think that it makes the decision harder for you. I can certainly tell you the messages that I've received have not been friendly. It has made it difficult for other people to come up and speak in front of you. And anyway, I appreciate the difficult job that you have, and I appreciate you taking it on. Thank you.
Yeah.
Anyone else? If not, then I will give Nick Terry the opportunity to respond to some of the things that have been said here today, if they so choose.
I appreciate it, Commissioner, and I appreciate everyone that's here today, because I do know I've done this. I'm let me introduce myself, Alan Klaus Anderson. I'm the chair of the Energy Practice Group at the Pulse Valley Law Firm and also a professor at the University of Kansas Law School. I've had the good fortune of working on most of the renewable projects. There's about 51 throughout the state. The first one was about 25 years ago, and had the opportunity to be in communities like this and see what impact they can have on communities. So I do appreciate this as part of the process, and I do recognize how difficult it is, and particularly for you all. I want to take one moment to kind of level set as to where we are within this process as we look at land use and zoning. And that's what I teach in my class as well. Where we are here is we had a set of regulations that this county commission passed. I believe it became effective in April of 2025 of this year. So early part of this year, the county, from the planning commission, the county commission went through the process to consider and passed a resolution with regulations related to battery storage. We presented to you a conditional use permit for a battery storage system based upon those regulations. And again, those regulations are detailed, they're thorough, and they're based upon engineering science. So they're a good set of regulations upon which this conditional use permit that was brought to you was based. It meets all of those regulations. The company invested a significant amount of money into this community as part of those regulations that were in place at the time. So with that, it's important that we look at the health and science around that, which is already built into your regulations. It requires us to follow NFPA, National Fire Protection Association Code 855. That is the set of regulations that gets into, which Dr. Olson will be able to get into more on that and talk about some of the things that have come before you today. But what's nice, and I always said this when we went into permitting battery storage, this was going to be what I thought would be some of the easiest to permit because we have some of the most understood and some of the most recognized and appreciated set of regulations. So when we come forward, as you require that we follow NFPA 855, it provides all those criteria that we need to have a safe project in the community. We also have to remember there's a lot of talk about a lot of different things outside of what this is, which is a discussion about this conditional use permit based on those set of regulations that you passed. There's discussion about solar, wind, some other things that are not before us today. Happy to have those conversations in the future at the time that's appropriate, but what we're looking at is this particular CUP based on those regulations that you have in place. And again, we'll get into the health and safety because that's a critical part of that, but we know that it's healthy and safe to do that. We know that the concerns that were brought up, which I appreciate and are absolutely fair to discuss, but we know they're covered in the regulations, and we know that that is a safe use on this particular parcel of land under the guidance that you all provided in those regulations. We're talking about something from a land use perspective. We're talking about 15 acres use of use on that. You've heard about that, you can see in the drawings. We're talking about something that's about 8 feet tall. And it's located, couldn't be more perfectly located in this county next to the substation that already exists. So again, what we have is something that we know from all the different requirements. Again, when we talk about things within the batteries, which Dr. Olson will cover, this is healthy, this is safe, it has all the regulation around it to make sure that that's the case. So what you have before you again is something that, and we've heard about, being a statesperson, you do have a tough job because you have to represent the 22,000+ in the county, most of which are not here. They do expect you to do what's best for the county. If you look at the research and the information related to what happens when counties host projects, it's incredibly beneficial to the entire community. People want to live and work and participate in places that have the money for the infrastructure. This project alone will bring in over $22 million directly to the county coffers as part of that. What you can do with that is what the residents want. They want, schools, we're talking about things related to senior services, we're talking about roads, we're talking about health services. That's what the research, Lawrence Berkeley Laboratory has done the research on this, University of Michigan has done the research on this. What helps a community? So when you think about that, when we think about the 22,000 within the community, that overall everyone benefits. Not everyone, there's nothing you can do in this county where everyone's going to agree that this is something they want, but when we think about the larger county. So again, to reiterate, we're talking about this conditional use permit that is before you based upon the regulations that were set out by this commission. We know based upon those and based upon the fire safety code of which you all put in, you all required it to follow. You all require us to have decommissioning bonds in place. So many of the things that came up are already covered by your regulations. You've provided all the protection for this community and beyond. In fact, it exceeds NFPA 855 by a considerable amount. So you look at a county such as yours, an incredible job to put that in place, We followed those rules, and we want to make sure that this is good for the county, and we look forward to continuing to work with you. I'm going to bring up Dr. Olson to talk, kind of get into some of those health and safety things, because we do have the answers on these. I want to make sure we get a chance to just talk about this, and then also happy to answer questions later.
It's more than 5 minutes, 30 seconds.
Is there a time limit?
So, Mr. Chair, Commissioners, again, Chris Olson.
That's ridiculous.
I am a consultant by NextEra, just to be clear. I don't think there's any secret about that. I said that to you when I came here. This is what I do for a living. This is my profession. Whether I'm here to speak to you folks, whether I'm under oath in court or at a state level hearing, the answers I'm giving you today are the same that I've written. They're written down for you with you. I also just handed out it's the public questions and answers booklet. This was provided to the Planning Commission. I'm sure it was part of your package. Prior to that, I'm going to refer to that briefly here at the end. I'm going to start touching on a couple of things first. We'll get into fire in a minute. One is that I said that I would check to see what the distance was. I did misspeak. It's approximately 1,900 feet from the closest home to the facility. Your ordinance requires 500 feet. In fact, your ordinance goes above and beyond most ordinances I've seen or state level requirements for setbacks from battery storage to homes. You require 500 feet. We're basically 4 times that. The question's been brought up, will we put battery storage facilities in rural areas? That's not necessarily the case. There are battery storage facilities that I've worked on where across the street there's a daycare in New York City. You will see battery storage facilities such as this in towns, in cities here in Kansas. In the future, they're certainly right across the U.S. So in terms of the setback distance your ordinance requires and the setback that we have to the closest home, we're well beyond that. Questions were raised about tornadoes. These containers are the way that they're designed, right? So you've got these containers, they're actually quite heavy, right? When they sit and they're mounted, they're actually heavier than Hasbro in terms of like their square footage. They're mounted and bracketed onto concrete pads, which are then, of course, installed geotechnically. They're designed to withstand, so the manufacturer certifies in this case to withstand up to 200 mile-an-hour winds. Okay, so an EF4 level tornado, which is one step down from EF5, which is the greatest rating, is 200 miles per hour or less. Now, if you have a direct strike tornado on one of these containers that's over 200 miles an hour, I'm not saying it's not going to become dislodged. At that wind speed, those types of tornadoes, we're talking about cars being thrown around, entire buildings being dislodged and like. They are designed specifically for areas like this of the world where we certainly know that we can have that strike. So they are specifically designed for high wind speeds and low level tornadoes. The next thing I'll touch on, noise came up again. I can tell you that if you wanted to put it in as conditional approval, the company is committed to being 50 decibels or less at all non-participating homes in the area. Okay, so that is, I said it before, that is the general sort of noise standard that we see across Kansas. Kansas as a state, you folks don't have a universal noise standard. Other states do. But if I look at the dozen or so counties that worked in on wind projects and solar over the last couple of years, that sort of 50 decibels is similar to other counties. I talked a lot about the different regulations and the different standards and the different codes and practices that have evolved over the last 6, 7, 8 years. Okay, so again, the first time that the National Fire Protection Association, which you wrote into your ordinance, which I think is a great idea, the 855 standard came into effect in 2020. That was the first time we had standards governing the containers, the batteries themselves, how those will be envisioned. In 2023, there was an update to that, and then now in 2026, even further. We've learned a lot in the last 6 years. There are very much differences and much more improved codes and standards to that. I can go into the Warwick fire, I can go into the Moss Landing fire more if you'd like. The big difference here with those fires is and people have brought it up today in the room, so not all lithium, these are all lithium-ion batteries, okay? So the cell phone that you've got in your pocket, a lot of the older batteries that were used a couple of years ago are what are called NMC batteries, nickel, manganese, cobalt batteries. That's true of Moss Landing, that's true of Warwick. These days, we now install what's called LFP batteries, or lithium iron phosphate batteries. Again, the technologies have improved quite a bit. They don't tend to go into thermal runaways, so they don't catch fire very easy like the NMC batteries. And the difference there is they don't have the heavy metals of the nickel, manganese, and cobalt. So they are different technologies. So whether it's your community or other communities, it's LFP batteries that we're installing these days. That's part of the updates to the codes and standards. So there are differences in terms of the fires. We're not getting releases of heavy metals and the like in those type of fires. Want to reiterate that the company did, it was one of the first questions I asked. I wasn't part of the meetings, I certainly were aware they were going on. They brought in fire specialists to meet with the assistant fire chief here from Wellington, as well as the volunteer firefighters in Oxford County. My understanding is a letter went out through the county to all the fire districts in the county to say we're having these meetings. That's just the first meeting. That was the first set of meetings to start that discussion. Certainly heard from a firefighter today that my understanding he's a volunteer in District 9 and he works in the city. He certainly will. That's the first step. As I said, if you folks decide to approve this, they have to, under NFPA 55, which is in your ordinance, they have to develop an emergency response plan. A very comprehensive document that walks through whether the fire chief dictates it's the assistant fire chief that'll be the prime directive of that, but with all the fire districts in the area, here's the entire code and practice and standard for doing it. The training will be there and everything else. All firefighters in the region probably have mutual aid agreements where you've got different districts that are going to come in. They will ensure that whoever the incident commander or potential incident commanders are on the site, they will have the firefighting, the training, and everything else that essentially says do not put water on these things. Yes, you do let them burn. So that outreach has happened. By NFPA 55, it has to continue. You have to have a document that's submitted to the county in an ERP prior to construction. So that's something that will be taken care of. And your fire chief has what we call, he's the authority having jurisdiction, or an AHJ. He or she has to sign off on that document. They have to be able to come to you folks as county commissioners and say, I've approved of the ERP, I'm happy and safe, and all of those things. I mentioned that 100 feet from the affected container that's on fire. That's what the out supply air. What we're talking about, so again, there's another set of standards called, which we talked about in the documentation for you folks, but they're called the UL, or the Underwriters Laboratory Standards, where we purposely catch these things on fire in very controlled laboratory outdoor environments. We do a lot of air quality testing during that. So we actually take a container and purposely catch it on fire. All the manufacturers have to do this. In this case, they're talking about LG containers, there's GE containers, there's Sumner, all sorts of different manufacturers. They purposely have to catch these things on fire in order to get through the UL standards testing. We do a lot of air quality testing. There's a facility in Ohio where we do a lot of this work. We're doing extensive air monitoring around that. In addition to that, fires such as the Moss Landing fire, Warwick fire that just happened, there was extensive air monitoring conducted around those, okay? That is how I can stand here and tell you that you could be at the fence line, any one of us in the room. Now, I don't recommend it, but it's a fire. You stay away from fires, right? You certainly don't want to stand downlane and be there next door. But at the fence line, if you read on the work, again, Warwick just happened, more stuff will come out, but the Orange County Hazmat team did put out that there was no risk to public health and safety during that fire. Speaking of where we put these containers, I'll tell you right now, the Church Street Warwick facility is about 200 feet from the major sports complex. It is right in the heart of town. Okay, so we do put these things in town. There was no risk to injury, public health, and the like. Moss Landing is a little different. It was a 300 megawatt battery storage facility. It's in California. What it was they took 300 megawatts of batteries, they stuck them in an old gas turbine warehouse, and the actual building caught fire. All 300 megawatts of those batteries went up at once. The building caught fire. It ran for days. You could not build that facility under NFPA 55 right now. Even in 2023, you could not have built that facility. Certainly not in 2026. It's completely different than what we're talking about here. We're talking about individual containers that are going to house, give or take, a megawatt or two of batteries, individually stored in containers. When I say containers don't catch fire, container to container, that's why we designed the container system. That's why we tend to shy away from putting them in large warehouses anymore. Even then, out of the Moss Landing fire, which was the largest fire in the world on that type of battery storage facility, completely different from that. Even then, the US EPA, there was 3 different groups that were monitoring that fire from an air quality perspective. One was the US EPA. They were on site very quickly. They had set up 9 monitoring stations around. Their results, if you go onto the EPA website, said results for hydrogen fluoride, that's one of the off gases that can occur, and particulate matter showed no risk to public health throughout the incident. So it's not just me telling you folks this, that we can go on through there. If you come down to, again, so in fire incidents, we no longer put water on these containers. A couple of years ago, firefighters, Fire departments weren't properly trained necessarily in communities. They didn't have all the resources that we required to give your firefighters the training and everything else. If you look at some of the fires that happened in New York State, there was 4 fires that happened in New York State in 2023. One of which was a Warwick fire in the same facility that we're talking about that just caught up again. The governor of New York put together an interagency working group in 2023 to investigate those fires, to look at the results of the air quality, the soil quality, and everything else. For most of those fires, they put an extensive amount of fire water on the affected containers. They didn't know better at the time. Those fires ran for several days. There was hundreds of thousands of gallons of water put on those. In that packet that I gave you that you already had before you on page 8, what I did there was list what the results of the interagency working group was. And so this involved the Department of Environment and Conservation, the Department of Health. It involved the Office of the Fire Protection Patrol folks in New York. Kind of about 2/3 of the way down the page, this was the conclusion of that commission. Following a comprehensive review of analysis of air quality, soil, and/or water data collected in the days following each of the fires, the OFPC and DC, in collaboration with the State Department of Health, concluded there was no reported injuries, no harmful level of toxins detected, and no long-term off-site impacts involving any migration of contaminants associated with the fires. So this is how, commissioners, we know that. I certainly understand the concerns. Okay, I come from a rural area, come from a long line of farms. I understand the importance of protecting groundwater. Okay, I don't want my well impacted. This is how we know that even if again, we're not going to be putting fire water on these anymore. Even if there was, there's nothing going to leach. There's nothing coming off of these containers that are going to leak into the soil and groundwater. And even in the case where they put extensive water onto fires, and they did soil testing, and they did groundwater testing, and they did surface water testing, again, this is the Department of Health in New York State. This is the Environment EPA in California. And I'm just trying to figure out what else in terms of wrapping up here, if there's anything else that I hadn't covered yet. There's again questions about surface water runoff and drainage. That's specifically why KDHE requires stormwater management plans, stormwater protection plans during construction. These are all things, and in that condition 22, we just look for a slight modification for it. We need those roads. They can't build a facility without it. We want to make sure that that surface water doesn't run off, but there won't be any toxins in it or the like. I think that I could go into any more details you wanted on the other 2 fires or the 4 that have occurred. The one other thing that I guess I would turn you to would be, again, if you went back to the presentation from today, that slide deck from today, and on page, let's see here, on page 8 again at that, you're going to see a graph there that looks fairly complicated. It looks more complicated than it is. This is the overall number of fires that have occurred around the world at battery storage facilities over the past since 2018. And you see the blue bars there, those are the number of fires that occurred around the world, total number of fires around the world in one of these facilities. So if you look at 2018, there was 16 fires, 2019, there was 14 fires. This was pre-NFPA codes and standards coming into place. Then you'll see in 2020, we only had 4 fires, but then went back up to sort of 13, 14, 15 from 2021 to 2023. And then in 2024, there was 8. So the level of fires have more or less remained consistent or gone down over the years. But the key here is that light blue shading that kind of goes from left up to the right in kind of an exponential manner. That's the amount of installed capacity of battery storage around the world. So we went from about 5 gigawatt hours in 2018 to over 300 gigawatt hours. So exponential growth in battery storage around the country. That orange line that kind of comes from the top down to the bottom right, that's the incident rate. You can see it's dropped dramatically of fires per installed capacity. At this point, it's about a chance of 1 in 10,000 chance that any one of those containers could catch fire in any given year here at the facility if you folks were to approve it. That's the same risk or probability of something like a transformer fire in any one of your substations. The risk is actually quite low, and very low, in fact, in this case. When I talked about the plume coming from one of these fires, again, it can be at the fence line, the firefighter's 100 feet away, stay there. They're gonna have their fire gear on, but they're not gonna be on supplied air, any of that kind of stuff for that long period. If you look at the constituent, you're getting I said relatively clean burn before. It's like a plastics fire. You're not getting a lot of off-gassing or the like. It is different than a house fire. where you do get significant soot and plume. The stuff that we have in our houses, the stuff that's in this building here, a lot more toxic than what you have coming from one of these container fires. With that, I can answer questions now, or I would turn it over to Billy Wiggins, who's going to talk to you about some of the economics.
Can I actually ask a question, sir?
Well, why don't we just get through this?
legit question?
Mr. Chair?
We're under no time limitation over here.
Should be.
Okay, good
We're not
afternoon.
really under a time limitation for your response to all of the concerns, but try to.
I'll try to be brief.
But
and
don't
hit
we
key
know
points.
this information already? We
So-
would like to respond.
Okay, folks,
Just
let's
as-
let him talk.
Again, my name is Billy Wilkins, lead developer for development for NextEra in Kansas and Missouri. I've been with NextEra for a little over 6 years, been developing in Kansas for a little over 4 years. Prior to that, I served with integrity in the military, retiring from the Army in 2017 after 21 years. I believe wholeheartedly in NextEra safety standards. The facts are, Kansas is experiencing significant low growth. A lot of that is due to the influx of industrial manufacturing and other types of manufacturing, but those are regionally focused. And so when you think about the areas where that's occurring, that's out west in the Garden City area, that's here in the central part of the state, in the Wichita area, and then around the Kansas City area. So the way we develop our projects is in response to the market. And the market is already shifting to where there's going to be a shortage of electricity in the next 5 to 10 years because of all that demand that is coming to Kansas. And those are the facts. Battery storage contributes to supporting that effort. Battery storage has a lot of benefits to the grid. And believe it or not, this grid is connected all the way up to North Dakota. So there's positive impacts from being a connected grid. So if you have a severe weather event here, you're supported by the grid that extends all the way up to North Dakota. So I hear a lot of complaints about where electricity is going. It's going to the grid here that's supporting the Southwest Power Pool, which extends from northern Texas up to North Dakota. And so regardless of the central location of a production facility, it's supporting the grid, which is ultimately in the best interest of all that are in that regional area. I do want to talk to a little bit of the economic benefits in your packet. It's section 13. I'll just hit briefly on that. So Web Road, we work with the strategic economic research firm, an independent firm, to look at economic benefits, and I'll only hit on a few. Again, property taxes.
Billy, 1 second. Commissioners, that's in the Q&A document near the end. So not this one, but
In the Q&A. Thank you. Property taxes over the life of the project are expected to be in the ballpark of about $23 million. And that's including the contribution to the county. And I know we're in the process of negotiating that, but that's a significant part of the contribution for property taxes. There are earnings that are applied during the construction period, and that also extend into the operational period of the project. Although small, there are jobs that are created during the construction period, and then local jobs that are also created as a result of the project. Just a couple things that we are big on supporting our community events and community organizations. And we're looking for more of those opportunities. So far, we've spent about $55,000 total on various opportunities, including supporting the Main Street program as part of the Sumner County Economic Development Commission. Also, the Wellington Fire and EMS support for training equipment, the Wellington Veterans Memorial, Heritage Park sculpture, the Oxford Watermelon Feed,
as well as the Sumner County Fair. Our intent, if the project is approved, is to host a job fair where we would actually bring in local contractors and for them to introduce their businesses and provide opportunities for employment during construction. Again, we're open to supporting more community requirements and initiatives. Just one anecdote, and not saying that this is necessarily the way ahead here in Sumner, but Kingman County, we have a long-standing relationship there. There are 3 operational wind projects. We have one that we own and operate. The first project was commissioned in 2012, and the last one in 2021. Over the 13-year time span, Kingman County has effectively reduced their property taxes due to the income that they're receiving from the wind farms. And so this is a real example of benefits that come from renewable projects to counties. I'll end there with my comments and hope to answer any questions, if there are any.
I have a question. Right here.
Yes.
I'm not gonna be rude or anything.
Do you want us to take questions from the, how do you want?
He's willing to take mine. He's willing to take mine.
Just one.
Okay. All right. My question is, so where you guys are choosing to put this in is in between, Wellington and Oxford. It's about 2 miles away from Oxford, Kansas. You are choosing an area where windmills have been put in because it is so windy. We have probably an average of 25 to 30 mile per hour winds, up to 102, as another woman pointed out today. 45 mile per hour winds is almost average as well. So we have extreme winds in this area. Winds also in this area typically blow southwest to northeast. That means in 2 miles is Oxford. So the very first thing that would be hit, it would be hit very quickly if there were to be a fire, which does happen. It would hit fast and it would hit hard, and also directly on the other side of Oxford is the Cali County line. So then we'd have to get Cali County Fire Department and just their county in general involved. But my question is that with such wind speeds that we have on a regular basis, I'm not saying an event, it's not a tornado here that I'm talking about. I'm talking on an average day-to-day basis. If there was any sort of fire, I mean, we have to worry about somebody throwing a cigarette out the window right now.
For sure.
Our land has caught fire 6 times. 6 times, yes. And now we're having to worry about this, and it would create a big fire that can't be put out, and it's with these winds constantly. What are you gonna do?
Excellent question. And so here's the reality. In fact, in higher wind speeds, it would be, the level of any sort of contaminant in the air would be actually less because it's going to dissipate so quickly. Okay, that's true. Where you get more worried, hold on, ma'am, give me a second. Where you get more concerned for a fire is if it's actually low wind speed, and like I was saying, for these ones that are right in the middle of the city, such as the Warwick fire, if it's low wind speed, and then you can have more of a concentration of contaminants in the air. Regardless of, like 2 miles away, certainly, as I was saying, the EPA, when they were looking at that Moss Landing fire, we look at the Warwick fire that just happened, we look at the fire that happened in Utah a couple months, or the one that happened in California back in late August, early September. Again, the air quality that's monitored around those facilities is that things were either not detectable or they were far below the health-based guidelines. So, in fact, at higher wind speed, you get things dissipate, as you can imagine, right? You're just throwing a piece of paper up in the air and it's going like forever. But it's going, if you like took dust, right, and you threw it up in the air and it's like, it's just gonna suck down, versus you throw dust up and it's 20 mile an hour wind, it's scattering and it's going out more. So in fact, and very much lower concentration, folks. Anyway, so I certainly understand, again, we do have concerns about these things. I wouldn't be here talking to you folks unless there was concern. What I can tell you again, the extensive testing we do at the facilities in places like Ohio, we purposely catch these under fire under varying wind conditions. First and foremost, that we're not catching adjacent containers on fire, so that we don't have the whole facility going up. And then number 2 is understanding what's in the air quality there. That's why we know firefighters can be 100 feet away within supplied air.
Just add on to that, how wide do they usually expand the fires? How wide of an area do they get to on average?
So the fire actually just is contained within the container itself. So the visible flames, if you actually go on, you can see on, if you just type in the Warwick fire, you can actually see you're not seeing a big smoke plume in that fire, what you're seeing is the flames themselves, right? So they certainly, the container itself, and that's where we have spacing of the containers have to be so far apart. The material within the containers, and so that they're not catching adjacent to adjacent. So we're actually, we don't get a lot, you're essentially having a plastics fire, so you're not getting a lot of embers coming off and things like that. There's also fire breaks. There's I can't remember, is it 10 or 20 feet, or this one, 10 feet? It's a fire break, so there's like, all these are on gravel. The entire facility will be gravel, and there's an additional 10-foot at least buffer, and I believe it's even a little further than that, so that you're not going to then catch the pasture land or whatever the cropland is they're adjacent. So we don't see these fires spread. They stay within the containers themselves. We don't see off-site fires. We don't, and even if, let's say you had, and you folks said your land's caught a couple times, I recognize that wildfire is one of the primary concerns in this area of the world. The reason we have the fire breaks there is so that if you had a wildfire come towards the containers, off-site coming on, is that again, there's a fire break that protects the facility itself, so you don't have to worry about any catch.
Thank you, folks. Okay, we're going to close the public session of the meeting. Mr. Brewster, do you have any thoughts or comments?
Yeah, so kind of where we're at with things here, and I'm going to turn it over to County Councilor Paul's graph. I'll let him do some different things here, going over certain procedures. And then really the only thing I have to add after he gets done talking is we would be down to the vote. Of course, it's a motion to approve, which I would give you a resolution number, a motion to deny, which we won't have a resolution number, a motion to table, if for some reason you feel it needs to be tabled. The other option is by statute, if there's something that you felt that the Planning Commission may not have heard at this level, it can be sent back to the Planning Commission. So those are the four options. I'm going to turn over to Mr. Paul's graph.
As far as sequence, we do.
Can you hear me now? Can you hear me now? Okay. As we've discussed, the law of this state since 1978 on these questions, whether it's this project or anything that requires a zoning or conditional use permit, is the golden case that came out of Overland Park. And that's been the law for 47 years. And what all the cases say in the last 47 years is that when these decisions get appealed, which I assume that an appeal is going to happen here regardless of how you vote, which is fine, that's the process, that this governing body needs to apply the golden factors. And my suggestion is you discuss your general thoughts as to, based upon what you've heard today, and then if you want, I can help you apply those general thoughts to the golden factors so that we have properly followed the law. It's just, I don't know have no idea what direction you're going, and so I think you're presenting comments as to what you've heard so that we can then tie those comments to the golden factors make sense, if that makes sense to you. And I would note, probably the preferred way to do this would be to go into executive session, and we're not doing that. Because we don't want an issue of someone saying something happened behind closed doors.
Right.
So everybody needs to understand, particularly on something this contentious, that there's going to be an appeal and further litigation, I think. That would be the prudent thing to do, but you all have instructed me we're going to be fully transparent. So even though it may be a little clumsy, we're going to have this discussion out in the open so everybody can see it. Mm-hmm. Okay?
Okay, does this board have any, do you feel you have any reason to table our decision for a later date?
No.
Okay, with that being said, I'm first of all gonna look at you, Mr. Cnty. This proposed project is in your district. So I give you the first opportunity for any thoughts or comments.
Okay. Well, I'm going to start off with my basic stand on everything is property rights are essential. If you don't have the right to do on your property what you feel you need to do on your property, then you don't own it. I mean, if you really are bound and can't do things on your property, then it's really not yours. You're renting it or you're just living on it. But with that being said, property rights end at the property line. Property rights end at the property line. And if you are doing something on your property that is offensive or detrimental to your neighbor's property, then you don't have the right to do that. So, with that being said, I'm going to refer to Golden case. One of the key, one of the elements, one of the 8 elements that they list on here is number 2, the zoning and uses of the property nearby. With that being considered, number 2, the nearby properties are rural, residential homesteads. They exist in a rural environment. They don't exist in an industrial environment or a commercial environment. So I feel like that by the basis of the number 2 of the golden rule, the zoning and uses of the properties nearby, this doesn't really fit. This doesn't seem to fit because of its nature and potential detrimental effect on neighboring properties. And that's not even going into the contaminations or anything like that. Just noise. Just noise is a detrimental effect. I live 2 blocks from a co-op. However, I bought my house with the co-op being 2 blocks away. And I have to live for 6 months out of the year with nothing but fans running and fan noise from the co-op. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. It's just the way it is. However, these homesteads, these families, these farms have been there for generations and years.
Yeah.
And so they didn't buy it with the understanding that there was going to be noise. I bought mine and my business, everything I understood. I'm buying it where it's at and I take what comes with it. So that on the golden case is my number 2 reason. The 4th reason of the 8 that they list for the golden rule is the extent to which removal of the restrictions will detrimentally affect the nearby property. So at this point, this property has restrictions on it that you can't build a commercial or an industrial project on it. And so what that requires is for the zoning board and this commission to alter or change or lift those restrictions. And so I feel like removing the restrictions for this property, for this property and this project's construction, even outside of a catastrophic event, is detrimental to the neighbors. However, in the event of a catastrophic event, it's just mind-blowing. It's even inconceivable. So those are my 2 points. Those are my 2 points that I'm going to fall back on the golden rule for this. And I got to say that I think our science has outpaced our technology. I believe that eventually containment won't be an issue. And I believe eventually that the materials in the batteries will not be so threatening. So I feel like, I mean, just a good example in itself is the regulations have changed every 3 years. It's written in 2020, changed in 23, and it's changed in 26. I want to be on the back side of those regulations. You know, when the first person built a nuclear reactor, I bet they probably didn't have lead shielding. I bet everybody that was in that experiment probably died of cancer within 10 years. Don't know, just guessing. And so my theory is I'm not adamantly against this technology. I'm just against the ability to control it, to use it safely. And And I don't think we're quite there yet. It's still relatively new technology. And so until the federal government and the state government have better regulations and better control over it, I don't want that responsibility falling on me, because I'm not an engineer, I'm not a scientist. I rely on everybody else to tell me what's safe and what's not. And when you have conflicting opinions, how do you decide who's right and who's wrong? So with the lack of federal and state oversight and regulations, I don't feel comfortable with it. At this point is what I'm saying. So I don't feel that it is a good fit for the area that it's going into. Just within a half mile, there's a half dozen homes at least, and if you go out 2 miles, there's over 700 homes. So I know this is a pretty thick density population for rural Sumner County. I mean, it really is. And I'm not saying I want to put in somebody else's backyard. I'm saying at this point, I'm not comfortable with the technology that deals with the science of this. So I guess that's enough of my hot air.
Before we get to a motion, Mr. Warner, you have any comment?
Well, my only comment is about the noise. I mean, there's a plethora of evidence that's been presented by the people on contamination and whatnot, but the noise, 50 decibels, a half mile away, where you don't have that 50 decibels today. That's my whole issue, is I took a vote for the current wind farm after I had heard about all the noise and all this, that, and the other before it was put in. I went down and visited the one down south. The one down south sounded like a light breeze in a willow tree. I took my grandson fishing here the other day. While we were fishing, he said, "Grandpa, what is that noise?" I said, "It's the windmills." I couldn't imagine having to listen to that every day. Right. And with the iteration of technology, I can't in good conscience vote for this.
Well, my only thought is, well, two things. I'm not totally convinced on the safety of fire and all that entailed. I think the people in this audience today have attacked us personally. You don't think we have feelings, you don't think we care about this county. And I assure you that we do.
We hope you do. Yeah.
And I know one thing, that apparently the people aren't ready for this and don't want this.
Not this room.
So I tend to agree with my fellow commissioners. You neither one have comments, I'll entertain a vote.
Okay. Then I'll make a motion. Then I'll make a motion to deny this application for conditional use.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, no.
And as
I'll do what I want.
provided by
Thank you.
KSA 12-760.
That's free speech right there,
Within
too.
30 days, -760.
That's free speech right
Within
there, too.
30 days, any person aggrieved thereby may maintain an action in district court to determine the reasonableness of this decision today. Thank you.
Somebody make that motion.
Thank you very much.
Hey, can we throw a parade tonight? A parade?
Thank you, Jim.
Huh?
Only for Jim.
I'd like to throw a parade.
Thank you.
Your name is?
My name is Joseph Gould.
Yep.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Doing good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you. Cheers. I swear.
We haven't adjourned yet.
I made a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I did.
Yeah, I'll second.
All in favor?
This is who NextEra is. They are actively attempting to block this man from recording a conversation with their representative. They spoke of transparency and then cannot face a camera of a citizen. This is impeding this man's freedom of the press.
Oh, yeah. No, it absolutely didn't. The point is that everyone is important too. That's just the point that I make. When elected officials are in a democratic republic, they're representing the entirety, including the people here. Absolutely. No insinuations. None at all.
Oh, no. You're trying to convince our commissioners that there's actually people out there in this county that would support it. And there's not. And we seen your little text stuff. It didn't get your people here, did it?
It did what?
I said your little text you guys were sending out didn't get your people here,
I didn't
did
send
it?
any text.
You did. So then who was sending the NextEra text? It was all
I
the
don't
web,
know.
the web battery storage text. You don't know? Your company wasn't behind it? So are you lying about that too?
So I'm not with NextEra. I'm with personnel in the law firm. So they might have sent out some text. I'm not saying they didn't.
So are you paid by NextEra to be here?
Yeah, of course.
So who's the NextEra rep? Is that you?
Say that again? Yeah. But I'm happy to have a productive conversation, but I don't feel like we're having it this time. But again, happy to. I can give you my card if you need to. Which I am happy to always talk and conversate. This is Thank you, sir.
You all have a good day.
You too. No, we appreciate the process.
What's that?
Like, what's your name again?
My name's Dan.
Dan? Okay.
My name is Joseph Gould.
Joseph? Okay.
Yeah, born and raised right here in Wellington.
Joseph what?
Gould.
Oh, Gould. Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Nice to meet you. Just reach out to me. Let's talk. I'm sure you have some great ideas we can discuss, man. Okay.
Guess I've been meaning to meet you, huh?
I guess so.
Yeah.